So Mortal Kombat has always been one of my favorite video game franchises. It's always been my favorite fighting game franchise, and I love fighting games. And so I was really excited when they announced Mortal Kombat 1, which is instead of going in the direction of Mortal Kombat 12, they decided to do a proper reboot of the franchise. And I've got to say, so far I've really loved it. You know, my usual criteria for beating a game here, or for reviewing a game here on the channel, is that I beat it. Spoilers, I guess. But however, with Mortal Kombat and with fighting games in general, beating the campaign is really just the beginning. And so I've done so much more than just that. I've tried out just about everything this game has to offer. And so I've got a lot to say, and I've got a lot to say about a lot of different things in this game. So without any further ado, guys, I want to just go ahead and hop right into the video. So my name is Doug, and this is my review of Mortal Kombat 1. So I always tend to start my game reviews with the story, and I'll go ahead and do that here because it's actually not the main focus of this game. I do think that the story in this is incredible, though. I think that it's one of the better stories in the franchise that I've played, and I think that it was really strong and really better than I was expecting. You know, it's got a lot of the characters that we're used to seeing, and I like how they changed the characters and how they all played into the story in their own separate ways this time around. And you know, it's very different if you've played older Mortal Kombat games, but obviously it's an amazing jumping on point for somebody who hasn't played any. Um, I'm not obviously going to go into any spoilers here. I do think my only complaint with the story has to do with stuff regarding the ending. Which at the end of the day isn't a huge deal. It's just a story trope that I think is getting overplayed a lot nowadays. And I like where the story was, I like where it was going, and then it kind of goes in a, direction that I wasn't a huge fan of. But overall, I really enjoyed it. No real complaints there, I suppose. More of a nitpick with that ending there, but, they still handled what they did well, and I really enjoyed it all the way through. And, there's not a whole lot to say on the story per se because again, I'm trying not to spoil it, and it's really not the focus of the game. But I do think that the cinematics were really good. I mean, obviously the graphics is something I'm going to touch on in their own spot, but even the cinematics within the story, just the cutscenes in general, it really feels like you're watching a movie. And the audio mixing, the acting all around for the most part is all just really top notch and high quality. And it really is bolstered by a good cast of voice actors and also regular Hollywood actors. I'm sure at this point, if you followed the game at all, you're aware that Johnny Cage is played by Jean-Claude Van Damme. We've also got Megan Fox in the game, so you got some pretty big named actors in this, and yeah, it's a really enjoyable campaign. I really liked most of the characters. I like the way they play off of each other, and there's not really a whole lot to complain about there. Now, the big thing, obviously, is going to be the gameplay, and the gameplay in this game is probably already the best gameplay I've played in a fighting game ever. I've played a lot of fighting games over the years, a lot of different franchises. Really enjoy them, of course. And this is probably the most fun I've just had outright playing a fighting game. Of course, it's a 2D fighter. You have a roster of, I believe, 23 characters at your disposal, and it's a really good roster of characters. I'm going to be honest. A lot of these characters are new to me. I started playing Mortal Kombat with Mortal Kombat 9, and while I've gone back and played some of the older ones, I've missed out on quite a few of the characters that they brought back in this one finally. And so it was cool to have such a large roster of people that I've never played before, but also such a large roster of returning characters that got reworked in such interesting ways. For example, I think one of my favorite characters in Mortal Kombat period, but especially in this game, is Reptile. And he's very different in this game. He's not a lizard and he's not a human. He is both. He is able to shapeshift between being a human and a reptile, and I think that that's really cool. And kind of speaking of, to go back to the story a little bit, I like the emphasis that this game puts on some of the side characters that in the past might have been neglected a little bit, such as Reptile or even Baraka. I feel like really got fleshed out in this game a bit more, and I really enjoyed that. But on top of that, I just feel like the gameplay is so fun and fast and chaotic at times, but also very fluid. I didn't really notice any issues with it dipping in frames, or, the combat might get a little hectic, but it's never overwhelming per se. And I think a big piece of that as well comes from the cameo fighter introduction here, which is something that admittedly, when it was originally announced, I was kind of iffy on if I would enjoy or not. And I've got to say, I really enjoy it. So when you pick your fighter from your roster of, I believe I said 23 characters, you then also pick a cameo fighter. Now, admittedly, I still haven't unlocked all of them. Quite a few of them are not unlocked from the start, and I don't have all of them yet. But I have unlocked a couple, and I really enjoy the way that they play into the game. So you're able to kind of bring them in for combos, and a lot of these are characters that are not normally on the base roster. Some of them are repeats, but largely it's our way to get characters like Goro or Mortaro or even Sonya Blade and Jax are relegated to cameo fighters in this game, and I actually really like this mechanic a lot more than I thought I would. This mechanic really helps give a unique spin to the gameplay. Not only do they come in for, kind of combos of their own, they can really come in, you hit the, at least on PlayStation, it's the R1 button, and it has them come in for an attack. You can use them with grabs, you can use them with combos in general, you can kind of mix, your moves with their attacks. And they also have their own fatalities, which I thought was really cool. They're actually a lot more fleshed out than I thought they would be, and I think they're utilized pretty well for what they are in this game. And I think, again, it really helps put a unique spin on the gameplay, and it's something that I hope to see other fighting games, and really Mortal Kombat again, of course, do in the future with their next games as well. Um, Again, it really just makes the gameplay unique, helps it stand apart, but also something I'd like to see kind of become more of a norm, going forward, I guess. And also, speaking of gameplay, I did want to shout out the different game modes in this game. I think are pretty interesting. Obviously, you have the campaign, but you also have the towers, which are returning from just about every Mortal Kombat I can remember playing. Technically, even the first Mortal Kombat was just towers mode, so yeah, they've been around for a while. But this is how you get the characters' arcade endings. You can kind of play through as different characters, different enemies. It's just a tower of enemies. You have the classic towers, you have the living towers, you have all of the fun stuff, and it's really enjoyable. It's kind of one of the mainstay staples of the franchise, and would kind of feel empty without it, but also something that, of course, is always cool to have and fun to play. And I plan on going through and playing through the towers as every character, as I always do with every Mortal Kombat game. But one of the big standouts is now we have the Invasions game mode, which more or less is replacing the Crypt from Mortal Kombat's prior. And this is kind of where you go and you can unlock a lot of side content, but also just really fun in general. So this is kind of more of a board game layout. And so as of now, I've played through two of the kind of realms or tables, whatever you want to call them, and it's quite literally a board game layout where every spot you land on could give you an item. It could be a fight, it could be a test your might, it could be a challenge in general that's not even a fight related. It's really cool and it's really fun, and I think it's something different, instead of the crypt just being an area you kind of walk around in. This area is a lot more fleshed out, and it seems to be seasonal content, so hopefully they utilize that properly going forward with proper, seasonal content and new storylines and whatnot there. And the invasion storyline also surprisingly, and in a good way, surprisingly, plays off of the ending of the campaign, which no spoilers, of course, but I like the way that it ties in and the way that, things play out there while also just providing a fun game mode in general. And that's one that I really want to play through a lot more. I plan on playing all of the seasonal content for at least this season and going through and really just fully embracing it and having as much fun as I can, because that game mode so far has been nothing but a good time. I did also want to touch on some of the other things in this game. We talked on the gameplay and the story, but the graphics are just insanely good in this game, whether it's the cinematics and the story or the gameplay in general, or even just the gore you see in the fatalities and whatnot. The graphics are downright insane. This is definitely up there for the most beautiful game that I have ever played. As well as the sound design, which is also phenomenal. Especially, again, I mentioned earlier the voice acting, but also, like, the campaign truly felt like I was watching a movie at times, and it was really kind of crazy that, a lot of games nowadays can kind of feel like that, but you don't really see that cinematic effort put into fighting games per se. And I feel like they really went above and beyond with this one, and really wanted to give that a shout out. Of course, it's also the sound design in the regular gameplay. You can really hear the bones crushing and really feel the pain, I guess, of the blows, and it really helps elevate the gameplay too by having this. And I really enjoy this game overall. Genuinely, my biggest complaint would have to be the ending of the story. even then, not the end of the world. It's just a story trope I'm not a fan of. They handle it pretty well within the story. Um, if you've played it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't played it, not really a spoiler. That being said, guys, with all of that out of the way, I think I'm gonna have to go ahead and give this game a score of a 9.5 out of 10. I mean, I really enjoy it, and there's very little bad or negative things I have to say about it in general. And yeah, I really think that this game could definitely be in contention for my game of the year when it's all said and done. And I think that this is probably my new favorite fighting game, which is also, again, I mentioned earlier, one of my favorite gaming genres. And so I think that this game sets kind of the gold standard. If you're a fan of fighting games, I think this is a must play, of course. Even if you're not a fan of fighting games, I'd really encourage you to give this a chance because I think that it's going to be the one that could win you over, more or less. And so, yeah, I think a 9.5 out of 10 is a very reasonable score, at least in my opinion, of course, which I rate the games based on my, enjoyment, not an objective score. And even then, I think it's, fair to say they're pretty similar here. So, with that being said, guys, thank you as always for watching. I always appreciate the support here on the channel and on these videos. If you enjoyed what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're new here. And let me know your thoughts on this game if you've played it down below. Of course, the game isn't properly fully out yet, but if you pre-ordered the deluxe edition, you do have the early access to it. So if you do have that, let me know what you think. Otherwise, again, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you guys back in the next video. Bye.